I am so excited to be finally unveiling this healing workshop. So those of you who were in the challenge, you got a little bit of a taste of some of the pillars that I'm going to be discussing today. And so you'll get the complete roadmap. So let's go ahead and dig in. So in this workshop, what we're doing is we're looking at the path that we should take and the elements and the components that should be in or part of our healing journey. And so let's go ahead and begin. So thank you so much for being here. I'm Janie. And so for me, parenthood was a catalyst to begin my healing journey. And in fact, there were certain energies that activated in me when I became a parent that weren't available or that weren't anything that I was feeling in my life. So up to when I became a parent, I viewed life in a very specific way. I had this outlook. I was very driven. I was successful. I was goal oriented. I had a lot of energy. And so that shifted for me when I became a parent, and I didn't really understand what was going on. And not just, of course, does our identity shift because now we're a mom and now we have these little humans to take care of. But there was all of these patterns that I had been conscious of in my mother and in her mother before I became a mother. And so I always thought, oh, well, I see those patterns, like that's not anything that is going to affect me because I could see them. So it had to do with her relationship with my father. And so they had a very traditional marriage and what she could do and couldn't do inside and outside the home. And so there was a lot of restriction. And one of the things that I saw is that she never did anything for herself. And so for her, it was just something that you did when you became a mom, like your whole life became focused on your children and your family. And I know that that's a common belief and something that happens to a lot of women and even men when they become parents. And so I knew before I became a parent, I was like, no, like I know better. That's not going to happen to me. I need to make sure that I'm able to focus on myself. Well, what I realized when I became a mom was that all these patterns became activated in me. And all of a sudden, energies that I felt no resonance for, and in fact, I knew I wanted to avoid as much as possible. There was this drive in me like that wanted to achieve that. And I didn't really understand it because it was so contradictory to the way that I had led my life before. And so not just did I feel like I wanted to express these energies, which was so foreign to me because I had they had contradicted how I had grown up and the focus on myself and the focus on my learning and my development and so on. And so when my children were born and I felt this impulse to do this, and of course I was getting all the messages from culture and from my community that this is what you're supposed to do. Like, this is what you do. If you're going to be a good mom, this is what you need to do. And that there was so much dissonance in my life and I didn't really understand what was going on until later when I started learning about energy, that I understood that these particular patterns activated in me when I became a mom. And it was up to me to change this generational pattern. And so I went through several years not really understanding and struggling with this dissonance inside myself. And then once I started learning about energy, then I started to understand what that was. And I knew that I did not want to follow that. So even though that there was this impulse in me, that in fact I was I was very antagonistic towards, and I didn't understand why. Like, I didn't want that. So why did I feel the impulse to do it? And it wasn't until I understood about generational energy that then I was able to kind of decipher those messages and say, okay, well, what do I do with them? So instead of just struggling with them, then I had the tools to be able to shift those energies. And so what I'm sharing with you, this roadmap, is part of what I have learned in the last 20 years of my work. And in fact, in the last 5 years was when I really started doing generational work. And that's when everything kind of fit together. It was a missing piece for me. And now I can share this roadmap with you. So let's go ahead and dig in. So I was just like you. So when I found myself in this particular situation, I started learning about meditation. And I'm like, okay, if I learn to meditate, I know it will help me feel better. And then I that helped a little bit, but it didn't really have the results that I wanted. So then I went to go see healers. And to an extent that helped a little bit, but again, like, there were still a lot of issues that I had to focus on or that I had to deal with. And it seems like when something was dealt with, like, something else came up. And then I also took a lot of courses. So you may have been like me, where you took courses, or you have all of these modules that you watch and videos that you watch. And so I did that as well. And they helped me to gain an understanding of what it was that I was going through. But however, like, that wasn't the key. Like, that was one piece of the puzzle, but it really didn't, again, have the effects that I wanted. I was not getting the results that I wanted. And then, of course, I did a lot of mind work as well, a lot of thought work, where I was shifting my thoughts. I was thinking about what I was thinking, and then how that affected me, and how to shift my thinking around a particular situation. And so I know, like, all of these are strategies that people use, tools that they turn to in order to get the results that they want. And they work to a certain extent. So I want to let you know that if that resonate with you, if you've had similar experiences, then you're in the right place, right? So if parenthood has been a wake-up call for you, and if you want to do things differently than you saw your parents do, whether it was because they parented you in a way that was actually harmful for you, then you don't want to be repeating those patterns, and you're working really hard at not repeating those patterns, but you can still feel that energy, then that's something that you can definitely work on. There's other times when we see ourselves starting to behave like our parents, and which was my experience. Like, I started to see myself going in that direction that I had seen my mom go in, and I knew that had caused her a lot of emotional pain that she had not been able to express herself, right? And it didn't matter how much I talked to her. Like, she had this belief that family came first, and so she was never able to fully express herself. And so when I saw myself starting to go that same path, then I knew something needs to shift. I need to do something, especially when there was so much around me giving me message about how I'm supposed to be, and having it be really difficult to choose my own path. And so I had to figure out, well, how do I do that? And so just like you are, like, I was determined to change that story, because I didn't want my daughter to have to go through that same struggle that I was going through, or that her grandmother went through, or that my grandmother went through, and so on. So I wanted to make sure to clear that for them. And then I also have a son. So how is that going to affect my son? He was showing up as a man, and potentially in the future as a husband. So how could I clear that pattern so that expectation really isn't present in him? Because the energies are going to affect our daughters differently than they affect our sons, but we can still clear that energy so that then they're free to make their own choices without the heaviness of that energy. So we know deep down that these methods, that like meditation and healing sessions and so on, are ones that help to an extent, but we see more pieces of the puzzle. And so how do we deal with all of this? And we, of course, are whole humans. And so if meditation helps us a little bit in one particular aspect, then how do we put all of it together? And of course, you're here because you're committed to healing yourself, right? And having that positive impact in future generations. So not just do you want to have your life be better, but you want your children's lives to be better, and potentially all the future generations that are coming ahead or behind our children. So they are so what we clear when we clear these generational patterns, and even when we clear our own patterns, like that affects us, and of course it affects future generations. So it's that work that we do is a great investment, not just in ourselves, but in the future. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you the 4 pillars of the roadmap. And so you can see what the roadmap looks like and the order in which these 4 pillars should be approached. You're going to know what the elements of the pillars are, and then hopefully you will be able to assess which parts of the pillars or which parts of the healing roadmap you may be missing, so that then you can take that next step, so that then you can instead of trying to take 8 steps ahead, you can take that next step that is going to be the most beneficial for you. Okay, so again, my objective is that you leave today with understanding the healing roadmap, and then having that, at least that one next step that you're going to be taking. Okay, so here are the elements of the healing roadmap. So I'm going to break each one of these down. So there's 4 of them. And so the first is to be guided by your soul. And in fact, if you were in the challenge, you already received a taste of this, like what it would feel like to start engaging with those energies, with our soul energies, and of course, engaging with the ways that we are blocking and disconnecting from those energies. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is working hand in hand with our allies. So there's a lot of different allies, and then there are certain ways that we can work with them. Certain allies help us with certain aspects of our journey. And so knowing which ones help with what is very useful. Then there's the healing negative patterns and old wounds. So we'll talk about when that should come in. And sometimes we jump to that step. And so, and sometimes jumping to that step actually adds more difficulty to our journey. And I'll explain why that is. And then sometimes, like I did, we start to ignite our self-healing engine. So in fact, that's what one of the things that meditation does. And then when that happens, then all of these things come up to heal. And so in fact, we feel worse than better sometimes. And again, I'll explain why that is. So I want to just give you an overview of what the pillars of the roadmap are, and why we need these to amplify our healing, not just for ourselves, but for our family. And so that's one of the things that I'm going to be talking about. So here's the roadmap. And so here are the 4 pillars. And so this is the order in which, again, I recommend that we start working with them. So we want to start with being guided by our soul and making that connection and starting to create that relationship with our soul and with our allies. So there's ways to connect with our allies and then start working with them, so that then that makes the road easier as we go through. And then we can focus on healing negative patterns and old wounds with not just our own efforts, but with the assistance of our allies and being connected to our soul. And then, of course, that when we ignite our self-healing engine, then we can actually process and do the healing versus just feeling all of these blocks because we don't have some of these first steps available to us. And that's one of the things that I experienced. So I'll talk a little bit about that as I go through each one of the pillars. So let's go ahead and begin with the first one. So the first one, our first healing pillar, is to be guided by your soul. So when we are guided by our soul or our soul essence, is something that is always available to us. So that's something that is key for us to understand, is that we can have access and connect with our soul essence. Now, we want to be able to do that while we live this human experience. So a lot of times what people do is they learn meditation, and then during the meditation process, they're able to connect with that feeling of oneness. But then when they come back, then they're not able to feel it. So, and in fact, I've done this. So I've gone to meditation retreats, and then you feel wonderful while you're in the retreat and you're doing all this meditation, you feel so connected. And then you come back to the real world, and why with your family, there's all of these expectations. And maybe you don't have time to meditate as much. And then so all of these things, all of these issues start to just recur, because we need to make sure that we have this connection with our soul like 24/7, right? Not just when we're doing meditation, or not just when we are at the meditation retreat. And so how do we do that? So when we connect to our soul essence energy, what that does is it provides a compass to guide us through our life. And so a lot of times when we're disconnected, well, how do we know we're disconnected? Well, we feel bad. Generally, we feel depressed. We feel hopeless. We get very little joy from the things that we're doing. We may be confused about the actions to take. Like there's a lot of analysis paralysis whenever we have to make decisions. And so what our soul essence energy does, it provides that clarity. And so being able to be connected to that flow is very important. And again, we use it as a compass. We use it to guide us, to direct us, to know where we're going, what choices we should be making. And those choices become almost effortless, because when we have access to our soul energy, we just have a knowing of what is right for us. So when we connect to this energy, then our life is full of joy, it's full of hope, and we experience this deep sense of fulfillment. So now some of the mistakes that I see people making is that they let other people decide for them. And so then they block their own soul expression. And in fact, this is what happened to me. So instead, of course, what we need to do is we need to hear from our own soul, and we need to learn those skills and release the blocks so that we can hear our soul. Now, this is a mistake that many of us make, and I made this particular mistake, right? I was letting other people's definition of what a good mother was. And so I started trying to do what everyone else says a good mother does. And by doing that, then I was not listening to my own soul energy. Like I was not exploring, how do I express my motherhood through, or these energies through motherhood, right? So motherhood isn't my purpose. My purpose is related to these energies, and motherhood is just a vehicle that I can use to express them. But that way of expression is going to be unique to me. So I need to be able to figure that out. And so if I'm listening to someone else, if I'm listening to what my mother said, or what my mother-in-law said, or what my friends said worked for them, and then I try to do the same thing, then I'm not honoring my own essence energy. And so that's a big mistake that I see a lot of people making. Now, we may feel an impulse or a desire to express our soul energies, and then we deny it. We deny it, not knowing the impact that it's going to have on us, because the impact is, in fact, very it's a big impact that we feel in our lives. We start seeing changes, and a lot of times we don't recognize that those results that we're getting in our lives, it's things that we don't want, are stemming from this denial of our soul energy. So what we really need to do is we need to be able to open that channel to help us to understand what our soul energy is, what our soul essence is, and then how to express it. And then, of course, the lack of soul energy expression blocks our ability to heal. And so a lot of times we don't recognize that that's what's happening. And so if we really want to heal, one of the first steps that we need to do is connect to our soul essence energy. So then that soul essence energy begins to flow through us. And a lot of times then healing is not as hard. Healing doesn't take as long, because then we're able to really harness all of that essence energy, all that divine energy. It's able to flow through us. And so what we need to be able to do is be able to turn up that dial, right? And I use that metaphor in the during the challenge. So it's like a radio frequency, and we need to be able to understand when we're hearing it, so then we can pay attention, and then we can clear anything that's in the way of us being able to listen to that. And so when we're able to do that, then what that allows us to do is that allows us to receive that vital force energy, so that then we can get the results that we actually want versus getting results that we don't want. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to healing pillar number 2, and that's working hand in hand with your allies. So one of the allies that I talked about in the challenge was thinking of our body as an ally. And so that's one of the allies. And of course, that's the ally that we work with 24/7, because we inhabit this body, and we need to build a relationship with it. And of course, there's other allies that we can work with. So there's different types of allies. There's different ways of connecting with them. And the idea is to know that we have these allies that we can work with, and we can turn to them for assistance. And in fact, what they do is that they make our path easier. They help us to make the changes that we want. They help us to heal. And so knowing which allies to turn to when then is really important. And another thing that allies do is that they help open the roads. They kind of show us opportunities. They make opportunities accessible, and they show us the way. So not just, so how do they help us heal? Some allies can assist us directly in healing, and others can point to the direction of where we need to focus so that we can get the healing results that we want. And then, of course, the key to working with allies is to connect with them and then develop an intentional reciprocal relationship, so that then we can improve our lives. We want to think of these allies, whether it's our body or whether it's plant medicine, or whether, for example, it's our guides or angels or our ancestors, right? These are all different types of allies that we can work with, and all of them can assist us in slightly different ways. And we need to know how they can assist us. And then, of course, we need to understand that they're also spirits. So then what can we do? Because just like if we want to develop a friendship with another human, right, we want a relationship that's reciprocal, so that we are going to be friends with them, but then they're also going to be friends with us. And we need to understand this about all of the spirit world, right? So that it's not just the case for humans, but that's the case for everyone. So for all spirits, whether it's plant spirits, so if I have a rosemary plant and I am wanting to use it as medicine, there's a lot of healing properties in rosemary, for example, or in dandelion. And as you see the image here of the tea, then I need to take care of it, right? I need to water it. I need to feed it. I need to make sure that it's getting enough sun, that it's actually in the ground so that it can grow and develop. And so it is my responsibility, or that's how I can have this reciprocal relationship with it versus only having one that is one way. So that's really important to understand about our allies, and knowing which ones to turn to when, like how to connect with them, and then which ones to turn to when. Now, one of the biggest mistakes about these allies is that this is a piece that I see so many people missing, is that they think that they have to do it alone. So thinking that we're alone, thinking that we have to do it all by ourselves, like that's a huge mistake. There's so much help available to us if we just know what that is, right? We need to break this paradigm that we have here in the Western world about this individualism, and then we need to figure it out all ourselves. And so we need guides, we need a community that we can lean on. And when we are able to lean on them in the correct way, then what happens is that it amplifies our results. And then we get to the results that we actually want. The next type of error that I see people making is that we think of allies in a very limited way, and thus we don't take advantage of all the assistance that's available for us or to us. So, for example, I see people who have this resonance with stones, for example, or with crystals, and then they collect them, but they don't know exactly how to work with the stone. So how can the stone assist in providing that healing that you're looking for? And then the same thing with plant medicine. So I just gave the example of the dandelion. So dandelion, and if you can see, the dandelion is one of my allies, and you can see it all over the work that I do. So dandelion, of course, has different forms that it takes from when it grows, and then it flowers, and then when it spreads its seed, and it has different healing elements depending on what part of the plant you're using. Are you using the roots, or are you using it when it's at this stage, or when it's at this stage? So really having a relationship with that particular plant medicine, then can help me more, because I know that knowledge is going to help me understand how to use it better. So being able to connect with those allies, and then knowing how to specifically turn to them for the assistance that we need, is really important. And then, of course, we unknowingly develop relationships that are extractive. And so this is just something that we do as part of the Western culture. That's part of what we need to shift. So we think of, well, how can something help me, versus knowing that, okay, yes, I can receive assistance, but this is a relationship that's reciprocal, right? There needs to be something where there is an exchange, so that energy continues to flow. And that's very important for us to consider when we are developing our relationship with our allies. So the next pillar is healing negative patterns and old wounds. Now, when we get to this particular pillar, one of the things that we need to understand is that we need to make sure that we're clearing our own energy, or we're healing our own energetic patterns, that we consider, is this a pattern that I've developed, or is this a pattern that I've inherited? Is this from this particular lifetime? Is it from other lifetimes? So when we start healing our patterns and our wounds, then it's important to know what it is that we are healing and where is it coming from, because there's, depending on where it comes from and how it developed, there's different strategies that we can use. There's different healing modalities that we can use and that are more appropriate to some than others. There's some of these wounds that we can heal ourselves and learn how to heal ourselves. And then there's others where we are so enmeshed with the issue that it really requires somebody else's assistance to help us move through that energy. Or sometimes we're so, think of it like that energy has you so tightly wound that you need somebody else to help to unwind, so that then you can start working with that energy. And sometimes it's just kind of getting you started and starting to pull at those threads so that there's some movement and there's some progress that you make. And then you have room, you have that capacity to be able to learn how to continue the healing process on your own. Sometimes so if we look at the mistakes, one of the biggest mistakes that people tend to make, especially people who consider themselves empaths, is that a lot of times we think because I'm feeling it that it must be mine. It must be something that I need to heal. And a lot of times it's not yours, right? It's not yours. And so how do you deal with energy that's not yours? So, so for example, if you try to heal that energy, you can't really heal it because it's not yours. What you need to do is you need to clear it, right? You need to remove it from having an effect on your own energy body. So we need to be able to recognize when that energy is something that we can heal and when it's not something that we can heal, right? And so when it's not something that we can heal, so for example, if it's someone else's, then we can't heal that other person, right? Without their permission. Like we can't do that. And so, well, what do we do then? If it's affecting me, that what can I do? What are the choices that I have to be able to not be affected by that particular energy? So it's very important for us to know that. Then of course we think, well, if it's mine, then I should be able to do it on my own, right? So I should be able to do it on my own, and then I must do it on my own. So those are mistakes, because again, sometimes, especially when we're starting, or especially when we're starting to deal with a particular energy, we need someone else to help us. Right? We need someone else either to assist us to heal that so that then we can integrate the energies, or we need somebody else to start the process so that then we have the capacity, we have the space, we have the movement to be able to make the transformation ourselves. So sometimes we need to turn to experts who can access that energy and who can help us to clear and make energetic space so that then we can take control of that. And then, of course, another mistake that I see people making, and in fact, this is a myth, is that all clearing or energy healing is the same. And in fact, it's not. And sometimes some of the techniques that are used are actually more harmful than helpful, because we need to be able to turn to practitioners that can help us heal at the root, rather than only clearing the surface. Because one of the things that happens if we only clear the surface, then the root is still there and it's much harder to access. So, which is why sometimes we feel a little better for a little bit, and then the things comes back, but it's kind of slippery, like it's harder for us to get a handle on that energy. So, so it's really important to understand like what energy is really accessible to us. And I would say that about 90% of the things that you are experiencing, you probably can work with yourself if you know the skills, if you know how to work with them. And then there's only about, I would say about 10% where you need assistance. And so sometimes all you need is assistance to pull at the threads, to make some space. And sometimes you need assistance to actually have somebody else actually come in and do the healing. And so it's important to be able to recognize when it's one energy versus another. Now, the next pillar and the final pillar is igniting your self-healing engine. And so remember that I said that this is one of the pillars that people sometimes start with. And so, so let's talk about this one a little bit. Now, our body has wisdom that can help us to heal, and that's very important for us to understand. And so when we turn to meditation, or when we start learning these modalities that are starting to ignite that self-healing engine, right? Our body is has this wisdom and is giving us all of this information to help us heal. But the thing is that we can't process all of that information because it's going to be a lot harder for us to do that because we don't have some of the other foundational pillars. And in fact, this is one of the things that happened with me and so I started doing this. And one of the things that I did is I got a Reiki attunement. And so what a Reiki attunement does is just amplified my ability to feel energy. And so now I felt, 100% worse than I did before, because now I could feel everything so much more acutely. And I didn't yet have the skills to be able to move through everything. And so, of course, when I was doing the Reiki, or when I was channeling that energy, I felt good, but I didn't have the skills to be able to look at everything, especially because I had decades worth of issues that had accumulated. And so, so I ignited this engine, but there were so many blocks that I had all of this energy flowing, but it wasn't flowing anywhere. And so, if I had known that getting these other pillars would have helped me to move that energy. And so that's really important. So there is a system for self-healing that is available to everyone, and everyone can learn it. And this was really transformational for me too, because I learned and was trained in a lot of different energy healing or energy clearing modalities. And one of the things for me and I know that one of the things that works for me is knowing what the system is and knowing how the system works. And having that knowledge and having that structure really helped me to learn it. And then once I mastered, or I started to master it, then I could start playing with it. But when the very first healing or energy clearing modalities that I learned did not have a structure at all. There was kind of, this is what you do, but I didn't really understand what it was that was happening. And so again, I felt better for a little while, but I wasn't getting to the underlying cause, and I wasn't bringing that healing into my life the way I wanted to, so that I could have that long-term impact that I was looking for. So that's really important. And the system that you can learn, it's available to learn in a lot of different ways. But sometimes some methods provide the system and other methods don't provide the system. So you really want a method that is providing structure so that you can learn and so that you can understand all of the parts of that system and then start working with it. And then, of course, you can self-heal old wounds and then use the skills in the moment to not allow new wounds to be developed. So that's one of the benefits of learning a system, is that one, you can start clearing everything that is an issue, but life continues to happen to us. And so knowing the system then allows us to start using it faster. So instead of waiting a year, until things get really bad, where we need to go see somebody to help us, we can start recognizing it. So part of what happens when we learn the system is that we start to recognize when things are building up, and then we can deal with them before they get to where there's so much buildup that it's really heavy and causes a lot of distress. So, and then once you start mastering, one of the beauty of the of knowing the system is that you can start applying it almost in the moment, and you can start recognizing when these incidents happen that could potentially derail your process or your journey, and you deal with it as soon as it happens. And so that is so helpful, because when we think about healing, a lot of times we think about stuff that has happened in the past, but just know that we're human and life continues to happen. And we want tools that we can continue using and moving forward, so that then nothing accumulates, and then we can be using it all the time, right? And we can continue this. Part of this transformation is that we don't let things build up, is that we're not affected by things the way we would have been affected had we not had the skills to deal with them. So again, some of what happens when we learn these self-healing techniques too early is that we start clearing the surface without really getting to that underlying issue and underlying awareness, so that then we can integrate that healing into our life. So having the healing is one aspect, and then we need to make sure that we change our energetic patterns, so that then we can create new patterns and patterns of wellness, patterns of joy, patterns of happiness, and so on. One of the things that happens when I tell people that there is this system and this method is that they think, no, I've tried other things and I'm not able to do it. Like, it's just, it's just too hard. And again, sometimes it's because you need somebody to show you in a very systematic way, and then to also be able to clear what's coming up as you learn. Because again, when we activate the self-healing engine, this energy starting to flow, but sometimes there's certain blocks, there's certain issues that we need to heal in order to move on to the next piece. So it's really important to know that, yes, you can do it. I've seen actually students who are really committed to the process, and they were just learning the system, but they didn't have anyone who could help them clear what was getting in the way of them really integrating the system into their lives. So there was something that wasn't letting them process the information. They would either fall asleep, or they would get confused, or they would get frustrated, or they felt like they weren't really going anywhere. And they thought, well, it must be me. I must be the one that this is just not going to work for me. And it does. It can work for you. Sometimes you need a little bit of help to remove whatever is in the way of you actually learning and becoming proficient with the skills. And then another big mistake is that you do this alone. So, and I did this when I started taking courses, and I started taking these kind of self-directed classes. And I said, well, all I just need to do is learn it, and then I can do it on my own. And then what happens is that you need to be able to ask questions. You need to be able to see how other people do it. You need to see examples of how things, what the possibility of them working is, and how certain people kind of navigate around using the different techniques. And then that opens up awareness about how you could do it. And so when we're doing this just on our own, that doesn't happen. And so being in a community of others who have the same skills, right, who know the same system, then makes it possible for everyone to amplify their results, because we can lean on each other to expand our knowledge, so that we can learn faster, so that we actually have a bigger energetic container to work with. And so having a community of people who know the same skills, right? So not just a community of people, some people know Reiki, and some people know this other modality, and some people know this other modality. No, everyone has the same language, everyone is using the same techniques, because then when you get stuck, then you can ask a question, and then because someone has that same knows that same system, then they're able to assist. So of course you can do that with a teacher, but having a community of people who all become proficient and master those skills then makes it possible for everyone to learn faster. So that's really important. So again, I want to show you the roadmap, right? So, and then this is actually backwards. So I wanted to show you how I did it. So the first thing that I did is I ignited my self-healing engine and I started learning about meditation. And again, what that did is kind of, and then I got Reiki attuned. And so what that did is it just amplified me, everything that I was feeling, right? So it amplified all of the pain, right? And the discomfort and the confusion. And so in fact, what was happening is that it was getting amplified so that then I could heal it, but I didn't have the tools to heal it. And so then what I did, of course, is then I went to go see, I went to go get healings from energy practitioners, and it helped for a little while, but I didn't understand what was happening. Like I couldn't really integrate the healing because I didn't know exactly, I didn't have anyone to work with. I couldn't ask questions. I didn't even know what questions to ask. When I felt something, I didn't know, like, is this normal? You know, is this something, there's something else that I should do? And so being able to not just work with a practitioner, but have somebody who can follow your process is important, because then you can ask questions. They know they know your situation, they know the different things that you are working on, and so on. So that's so important. Then of course, for me, one of the things that happened is that then I started learning about guides and connecting with my guides and working with my intuition and so on. And it was interesting to be able to connect. And some of the guides that I was working with, though, were the assistance that they were providing was not the assistance that I needed in the moment. Like that, as a human, as a woman, as a mom, that I needed to actually help me feel better. Like overall, like I understood what they were sharing and the information that they were giving me, but it's like, okay, but how do I bring this into my life? Like, how do I do that? And so when you start working with your allies, you'll learn there's certain allies that help with certain things. And so again, having the correct ally for the question and being able to turn to that is so important. And then the last piece that happened with me is I learned how to connect with my soul essence. I learned what that was. And when that happened, it's suddenly like there was clarity. Suddenly I had a system in which to gain knowledge and information, and a system to know when something was right for me, and then I could use it to navigate my life. And so what I did is I actually did all of these, but I did them in all random order, and I skipped back and forth. And that was because I didn't really have anyone guiding me through the process. So that's really important, is that at this point, now that you know what the roadmap is, right, you really have two choices. So you can figure it out yourself. So now you have the roadmap, and you know the order in which you can take them, and you can start learning different things. And in fact, at this point, you should be able to tell, like, well, which parts of the roadmap am I missing? Like, where maybe you can even track your own journey, and like I just did with you, and say, okay, what have I already done? And then how did that help versus how did it not help? And what are the pieces that I'm missing? So I want you to steal my roadmap, right? So use my roadmap to assist you, and see what elements you may be missing in the roadmap. Some what you've already attempted, some maybe you've attempted something but you didn't quite integrate all of the learning. And so that happened with me because, again, I jumped to step 3 over here, right? Healing my negative patterns without really understanding, well, why is that negative? Like, how is that in opposition to my soul? And when I was able to recognize what my soul energy is, then I could say, oh, okay, I understand why that, like, approaching motherhood in that way was wrong for me. Like, and now I understand why. Like, and and it's not about guilting. It's not, I'm not good enough, right? Or having, like, I should be able to be this type of mom, or if I'm not this type of mom, then my children are going to suffer. There's so much of that I had to release. And I was able to release it when I connected with my soul essence. And I said, okay, like, here is the energy that I'm here to express. How do I do that as a mother, right? And because I am much more than just a mother. So how do I express that in what I offer to the world, and how I'm friends, how I'm a daughter, right? How I'm a partner. So this soul essence really permeates everything, and it provides so much clarity and direction. But again, like, instead of it being the first thing that I did, it was one of the last things that I did. And so then everything then started falling into place. And so now, even though I'm presenting this like as like all of these discrete steps, this is the order in which I think you should approach them, but just know that you're going to be working with them multiple times, or it's going to be ongoing. So when you learn about your soul essence, of course, that's going to influence the rest of your journey, because it provides that compass, it provides that that anchor for you to continue on your journey, so that you can find the answers for yourself, right? Because ultimately we want to be able to do that. And then as you start integrating your information of your soul essence, then you can start developing your relationship with your allies. Because when you develop your relationship with your allies, again, they're going to make the road easier to travel. They're going to remove blocks that you didn't even know were there. They're going to open opportunities. So that becomes so much more available when you start building their relationship as soon as you can, right? And then you can move into looking at the old wounds and the patterns. A lot of times, just by connecting with your soul and working with your allies, a lot of that stuff starts to kind of disappear. And we don't have to work as hard for the healing. And for me, that was really impactful to see how much of an impact, like how I could see it affecting my life when I was connected with my soul essence. And then when I started developing this relationship with my allies, it just, everything seemed to flow. Like, I suddenly, things didn't seem as hard anymore, right? I didn't have to, they didn't feel as heavy. And then, of course, when you learn the system, when you're able to learn the system to ignite your self-healing engine, then not just can you use it to clear any old wounds that you still have that are an issue, but you can use it moving forward, right? And so, so even though these are discrete points in the map, right, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to wait. So one of the things, so I'd like to introduce you to the Heal Your Legacy program. So this is a program that I'm launching where I'm bringing all of these 4 elements together. And the idea is that you build blessings and then banish burdens for you, for your children, and future generations. Because when we make a shift in our own energetic signature, then that impacts those around us. And depending on how young your children are, then it can have an even more impact. Because if you can clear your energy, remember that your children are around you all the time. So they're energetically connected to you, especially when they're really young. And so they're always in your energy. So the sooner that you're able to clear these energies, then the less work they will have to do, Now, if your children are adults and they already have, let's say they're in their 20s or they're in the 30s and they're have already been impacted by these patterns. And sometimes we can see that because our children start to, we can start seeing the patterns of our parents, of our uncles, or, you know, other relatives. We can start seeing the patterns in our children. So it's not just our energy that we can, that affects them. So when we heal, we can heal these generational patterns that not just affect us, but affect other members of our family. And so when we clear that, then that also makes it easier for our children to clear or to make new choices. So this particular program. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about what's included in the program. And first, what I'd like to do is introduce you to my client, Natanya. And so she did this work, and then she said that doing this work really assisted her in creating wholeness in the fabric of her life, that she finally understood where she came from, who she really was. She was able to relax into her soul essence and really integrate it into her day to day. And so that's really my goal for everyone, is that they feel exactly the same way, and then they have the skills to be able to help themselves. So here's what's included in the program. So one of the things that I'm going to walk you through different elements of the program that I can help you with. And so when I can step in and help to make things easier by doing some healing or giving you some guidance that's individual, that's just yours, and of course I will do that. And then there's others where you're going to learn the skills. So one of the things that's included is your sacred soul profile. So here's where we work one-on-one to clear any energies that keep you from expressing and living your soul essence. So you're going to know what your soul essence is, and then we're going to remove anything that is like the biggest impediments that are keeping it from flowing and that are keeping you from connecting. And so, of course, one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to, even though it's a small group program, we're going to set specific goals for you, because one of the things that happens when we set goals or we set intentions is that energetically what it does is kind of highlights all of the blocks that are in the way of that intention. And so that's why intention setting is so important. So all your healing and your learning is going to be grounded in the results and the changes that you want to see in your life. And then the other part that's including is a healing matrix. So I have a specific process that I take you through to really understand where you are on your journey and what particular healing you need to do. So you may have already received some sessions. And so we look at, well, how have those affected your energy system? Have you really integrated that energy? Maybe there's this type of healing that will help you to start moving in the direction that you want to be going. Sometimes it's a different type of healing. So it all depends on where you are in the journey. And so I'm able to evaluate and really kind of do a diagnostic as to where you are, so that then I can assist you in moving forward and taking the next step. Now, a big part of the program is to help you to integrate your healing. And so one of the things that I do is I guide you through the process. And that's why this program, and I don't think I mentioned it yet, but it's a 6-month program, because not just do I want to have you experience the healing, but we need to give you time to integrate that healing into your life, and for you to start seeing what that transformation looks like, you being able to ask questions of someone who knows what the healing was about, right? It allows you to grow. It allows you to then also use what you're integrating to learn the skills that you need to take forward that are going to help you in your life. And so that's one of the things that my client Margie did, is she says that learning about her soul essence was an amazing gift, and that it gave her ways to learn and grow that she didn't know anything about before, and that she's changed and grown in ways that she never anticipated, and that she's now successfully moving in directions that she didn't expect. So so again, one of the things that happens is it opens up possibilities, right? Things you didn't even know were possible for you suddenly become visible. Like you can see that that's a choice that you can take, which is wonderful, kind of an add-on of doing this work. So other things that are included in the program, of course, is expert guidance. I've gone through all of these, like I know all these different types of healing modalities, depending on what your particular issue is. And then, of course, you access my knowledge and my skills and my experience to be able to learn more easily, to ask your questions so that you don't remain confused, so that you can continue to move forward. If you get stuck, then that means that there's something there that needs to be worked on. And so we will work on that. There's video lessons. So there's some of the knowledge that is kind of transmitted through a video lesson, so you can take that at your own pace. And there's also meditations and guided visualizations, so that you can start with those. And then as you integrate that knowledge and those skills, then the idea is that eventually you won't need those meditations or that guided visualizations anymore. But you can use the meditations to train you, and especially to help you go deeper and to help you learn the skills at the beginning, especially if this is new for you. And then, of course, a big part of the program, and especially why I'm doing a small group program. So I've done this program with people one-on-one. And so this is, and of course, they see tremendous results. When they're working one-on-one, though, they don't have that peer support, right? They can come to me for questions, and when they get stuck, however, they don't have access to other people who know the same process and the same system that they've been learning. So the skills get stronger when you can practice. And the more that you can practice, then the faster you learn the skills. And so if you have peers that you can practice with, then that means that your learning is going to be exponential over the 6 months, because you'll be able to practice. Now we can do a one-on-one where we're just working, just the two of us, but just know that then the peer support and the benefit of having the peers to help amplify your results, then of course is impossible when it's just the one-on-one. And so I'd like to introduce you to Kathy. And so when we worked together, she was working on something that she had been struggling for a while, and she'd been having difficulties. And so one of the things that we do in the program is that we help you to be able to recognize what is the underlying cause, so that you can resolve it. And that's part of the igniting your self-healing engine, is that you learn to resolve it yourself. And so you can see that here with Kathy. And then, of course, I'm there with my presence, my attentiveness, my thoroughness to help you when you get stuck, to help you, lead you in the right direction and that next step. Here is Marianne Candido. She also worked with me, and there was a long-standing issue that she had that she cleared. And she says she was able to work, or I was able to work my magic and give her a game plan to continue to do the work on her own. And that's really one of the major goals for this program, is that, yes, there's all of these healing that happens, so that then you can start building the life that you want, so that you can show up energetically for your children, for your partner, for your extended family, for your community, and then of course for yourself, right? So you can show up the way that you want to show up, expressing yourself, so that then you can continue moving forward. You don't necessarily need me all the time, right? You learn, you get the clearing, you get the healing, you learn the skills, and then you can take that moving forward. And that's my main goal. And so you can see that in these testimonials is that that's ultimately, right, not just am I an energy healer and practitioner, I'm also a mentor, but I'm also a teacher, right? And so my goal as a teacher is to make sure that you have the skills, that you can move forward with those skills on your own. And of course, that you have peer support so that you can continue practicing with your peers. And then of course you have access to me whenever you need help. Now, at this point, you may be wondering about the investment of the program. Now, because this is the first time that I'm just starting to offer, so this year, I'm just starting to offer this as a group program. Like I said, I've been doing this one-on-one work with clients that you can see that this is a really low investment for everything that I'm offering. And that's again, because kind of I'm still in the beta stage of the program, working with a small group of people, right? So just a handful, so that it's a group program, so we can benefit from the group aspect, but it's still very intimate. So the program is 6 payments of $335. Or if there's a one payment of $2,000. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the bonuses. So there is a fact acting bonus. So if you enroll within the next 24 hours, so again, this is June 16th, right, when I'm recording this, or and then you have these 24 hours to receive this particular bonus. So this is what I call the 7 sacred soul qualities method. And this is where you learn about your soul's manifestation kind of blueprint. How does your soul manifest? So there's different energies. There's 7 different energies that we all work for through manifestation. And it depends on how we as souls, the blueprint that we have for those particular energies. And so you get that as a fact acting bonus. So, and what this will do is it'll allow you to stop wasting years, money, testing other people's manifestation methods, because manifestation is not a one size fits all, right? Just like our soul energy is unique to us, so is our manifestation method. And so knowing what that is really critical. Now, the manifestation method isn't part of the program, because the program is focused on the healing aspect. But knowing what your manifestation method is a great way of you to look at what you want to create. So the next bonus is the pay in full bonus. So if you pay the full program enrollment fee, then you get a relationship clearing. And this is where I go in and I clear the major energetic issues between you and one other individual. Okay, so a lot of times when we're seeking healing, there's one particular person that we may have the most problems with. And so one of the things that this relationship clearing does is it helps to clear those, so that then you can start moving energy in a different way, right? You can start creating different patterns for yourself and your engagement with this other person. So just know that enrollment closes Friday, June 23rd, because we're beginning the journey on the 26th. So that's a typo. That should be, we begin on Monday, the 26th. So that's when I reach out to you. We make our appointments for our one-on-one sessions. We start to think about when are we going to be meeting as a group, because we start meeting as a group to practice the skills and so on. So we start that on the 26th. So we have 1 week of kind of onboarding and getting all of the sessions scheduled and so on. And then we'll start meeting right after the 4th of July. So but the program actually does start with getting all this information from you. So there's 1 week where we spend doing all of that starting on the 26th. So enrollment does close on Friday, June 23rd. So what I want to do is I want to answer any questions that you may have. So there is a Q&A. So I'll look at some of the questions in the Q&A. So let me just, as I'm answering those, let me go ahead and bring this back to the program. You can, and I know I have this, or at least I thought I did. Okay, so here it is. So there's the link where you can access the program enrollment. So let me go ahead and answer these questions. So I know that we're past the hour. So of course, if you need to, since we're past the time, if you can catch the replay for the questions, or thank you for sticking around with me. So I'm going to go ahead and answer these. So let me go ahead and read them. It says, do you work with ancestors? I don't have, yes. So I know that that's a common question and kind of misunderstanding about how we work with ancestors. So you may not necessarily have a very positive relationship with your current family, and you may be estranged with them. And that's in fact something that you may want to heal as part of the program. But just know that there are ancestors. You don't have to, you want to work with ancestors that are going to help you. Right. And so sometimes we need to go back generations to actually connect with well ancestors who are going to be able to assist you. So just know that you don't need to work with anyone that you don't want to work with. And in fact, usually the ancestors that come forward to assist us for our intentions, whatever intentions we set for the program, are not going to be recent relatives. Usually that's the case. And we all have ancestors. So for example, another question that I tend to get is, what if I'm adopted? Like, I don't know who my ancestors are. That's fine. Like, you don't have to know who your ancestors are. Like, you can still connect with them energetically. Okay. So, so I'm new to energy healing. Do I need, what type of experience do I need? Okay. So you don't need experience, like you're going to learn. A lot of times when we have been on this journey for a while, like even it's still difficult because we haven't done the journey using the right steps. And so if you're just new, then you have the benefit of not having done the steps kind of out of order. Right. And so you don't need to just, one thing is that you just want to make sure that you're compassionate and patient with yourself so that you can give yourself time to learn. But of course, you'll receive the benefit from the healing. You'll receive the benefit from the clearing. So the learning will just be easier because you won't have all of those things in the way. But yes, definitely you're able to do this even if you're a beginner. So I've tried other energy healing in the past and it hasn't worked. Again, it may be because they just got the surface and they didn't get at the root, right? So there's a lot of different reasons why that may have been the case. And again, as you see with the roadmap, like I use in the program encompasses all 4 pillars. And so those are the main components. And then of course, what we do as part of each pillar, like it's a lot more complex. So I can't put it all on the roadmap. So if you didn't get results because something was missing, right? Something was missing, or there was a modality that was used that was a wrong modality, or they didn't take you through integration. So maybe there was healing done, but there wasn't integration and awareness that was built into the process. And so that's a lot of times what happens. So that's really important for to know. And then, so there's a question here about extended payments. And so, yes, if you need something longer than 6 months, then certainly reach out to me at janie@soulslegacy.com. And then we can talk about what we can work out. Definitely, that is something that we can do. So how many healing sessions do we get? Well, that's hard to know, right? Because I have to do the diagnostic first, but the more than likely, what, depending on the experience that you've had in the past, like what you've already received, that may shift things for you. And so someone, for example, may get a soul healing, like to start with, and then they may get an ancestral healing. So one of the things that happens is that we set an intention at the very beginning, because what the intention is going to do, that's going to activate those things that need to be healed. And so, and that's one of the reasons why we set that at the very beginning. It's kind of like you say, I'm going to make dinner. And then, well, what ingredients do you need? Well, it depends on the dinner that you're going to make, right? So which healing sessions you get is going to depend on your own needs. And so it's going to be diagnostic. The key is that even, let's say, one person needs this type of healing and one person needs this type of healing, what's going to happen in the group is the integration is what we're going to do as a group. So it doesn't really matter what healing modality was used specifically for you. So everyone, of course, is getting that individual attention. But when we come to integrate, like, we're all learning the same skills for integration, because ultimately we need to be able to integrate that healing into our lives so that then we can make the changes that we want, because, you know, we have free will. And so it's up to us to bring this healing into this new action that we're taking in our lives. So that's really important to know. Okay, so I think I have answered all of the questions. So there were several questions that were similar. So hopefully I did, you got the information that you needed. And of course, if you didn't, if you have more questions, you can always reach out to me for this. And again, I want to just reiterate the bonuses, right? So you have the pay in full bonus, that's a relationship clearing. And then you have the fast acting bonus, which is a manifestation blueprint that you get your 7 sacred soul qualities for manifestation. And so again, the investment for the program is 6 payments of $335 or 1 payment of $2,000. And so I'm going to leave it here. So I want to thank you so much for joining me and for sticking with me until the end. I know I went a little over than I expected, but I had so much to share, and I'm so excited about being able to share this and make the program as robust as I can. And I look forward to working with you. So thank you so much for coming. You're welcome. You're welcome.